Welcome back. We are on day 23 of this war, and today I want to open with a sentence that contains the most important contradiction of this entire conflict so far. President Trump stood on the south lawn of the White House on Friday and said, and I am going to quote this precisely because the exact words matter, "You do not do a ceasefire when you are literally obliterating the other side." They do not have a navy. They do not have an air force. They do not have any equipment. They do not have any spotters. They do not have anti-aircraft. They do not have radar. And their leaders have all been killed at every level. And then on the same day, his administration deployed an additional 2,200 to 2,500 Marines to the Middle East, lifted sanctions on 140 million barrels of Iranian oil to try to lower gas prices, and Iran fired intermediate-range ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia. A country with no navy, no air force, no radar, and no anti-aircraft just fired intermediate-range ballistic missiles at a joint American and British military base in the Indian Ocean. We are going to fact-check every word of that claim today. Let's start with these specific military claims Trump made on the South Lawn because they are specific, they are on the record, and they can be checked against documented evidence. Trump said Iran does not have a navy. Bahrain's defense forces have intercepted and destroyed 2 more missiles fired from Iran, reporting a total of 143 missiles and 242 drones destroyed since Iranian attacks began on February 28th. Saudi forces shot down at least 47 drones, including a concentrated barrage of 38 drones within just 3 hours. NPR. Those drones and missiles had to come from somewhere. Iran also struck Kuwait's Mina al-Ahmadi refinery twice. Iran struck Qatar's Ras Laffan twice in 12 hours. Iran fired missiles at Dimona 7 times in a single day. Iran fired at Diego Garcia. Iran fired 2 intermediate-range ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia, located in the Indian Ocean, around 2,170 miles from Iran's coast. But neither of them struck the base, according to a U.S. official. Wikipedia, 2 missiles. Nearly 2,400 miles. That is not a country without equipment. That is a country demonstrating intercontinental ballistic reach, while the American president describes it as militarily finished. Trump said Iran does not have anti-aircraft or radar. Fact-check that claim against Day 20's confirmed events. An F-35, the most advanced stealth fighter in American military history, never previously struck by enemy fire in combat, made an emergency landing after a mission over Iran with 2 anonymous U.S. sources telling CNN it was likely hit by Iranian fire. If Iran has no anti-aircraft and no radar, what struck the F-35? The answer, supported by independent defense analysis, is that Iran has road-mobile infrared-guided air defense systems that do not use radar, which means they are invisible to radar suppression tactics, and which cannot be destroyed by targeting fixed air defense installations because they move constantly. Trump's claim that Iran has no anti-aircraft is technically addressing radar-based systems, while Iran has demonstrably deployed non-radar systems that are operationally effective against the most advanced aircraft America operates. Trump said Iran's leaders have all been killed at every level. Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, issued a written statement to mark the Persian New Year and Eid al-Fitr, paying tribute to the country's fallen fighters and praising the public for standing firm in the wake of repeated attacks. CNBC, the supreme leader, issued a public statement on Persian New Year. Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf vowed the country will continue the fight until the enemy truly regrets its attack, saying we will not accept a ceasefire until the enemy shows regret and appropriate political and security conditions are created in the world and the region. CNN. The parliament speaker is alive and making public statements. Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi gave a full television interview on CBS's Face the Nation on Sunday. Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi said Tehran had neither requested a ceasefire nor sought negotiations with Washington, saying we are ready to defend ourselves as long as it takes. CBS News, the Supreme Leader is issuing statements. The Parliament Speaker is vowing to continue the fight. The Foreign Minister is giving international television interviews. Leaders killed at every level is a statement that does not survive contact with the documented evidence. Now I want to address the single most extraordinary economic and strategic decision the Trump administration made this week, because it reveals more about how this war is actually going than any press conference claim. The U.S. temporarily lifted sanctions on 140 million barrels of Iranian oil as the price of Brent crude settled at $112 a barrel Friday, its highest so far in the war. Goldman Sachs suggested higher prices could last through 2027. Wikipedia. The United States is fighting a war against Iran partly justified by the need to prevent Iranian revenue from funding its nuclear and missile programs. And this week, the United States released 140 million barrels of Iranian oil from sanctions to try to lower the gas prices caused by the war against Iran. That is not a complicated contradiction to identify. The country that started a war to limit Iranian power is now releasing Iranian oil revenue to manage the economic consequences of that war. Trump administration officials are making a desperate push to secure every available barrel of oil amid a worsening energy crisis, even if it means lifting sanctions on the very country that they are fighting against. Trump officials now privately estimate that higher prices triggered by the war could linger for months, especially as fighting intensifies. Wikipedia. Privately estimate, linger for months. Goldman Sachs says through 2027, the gap between Trump's public claim of obliteration and his administration's private estimate of months of higher prices is the most honest window into how the White House actually assesses this conflict. Now let's talk about the Strait of Hormuz, because a development happened this weekend that changes the strategic picture significantly and is not receiving the attention it deserves. An Iranian source told CNN that Tehran is moving forward with monetizing control of the critical waterway. CBS News, monetizing? Iran is not just blocking the strait as a pressure tactic. Iran is now reportedly building a revenue model around controlling who gets to pass through it. Multiple countries have approached Tehran to negotiate the safe passage of oil and gas vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Araghchi confirmed Iran is open to countries who want to talk to us about the safe passage of their vessels, though he declined to name which countries had approached. Bloomberg Iran is charging passage fees through international waters, or at minimum exploring that model. This development has enormous legal and geopolitical implications. The Strait of Hormuz is an international waterway governed by the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. No nation has the legal right to charge transit fees for passage through it, but international law has never faced a scenario in which a country with ballistic missiles, mine-laying capability, and demonstrated willingness to sink vessels simply parks itself as the gatekeeper and says, pay or do not pass. Iran's military declared it is ready to close the Strait of Hormuz indefinitely if Trump carries out a threat to bomb its power plants. CBS News. Trump threatened to bomb Iran's power plants if it does not open the strait. Iran threatened to close the strait indefinitely if Trump bombs the power plants. Both threats are now on the public record. And the Dallas Fed issued a formal report this week saying the economic effects of the Hormuz closure will hit around the world, including in the United States, directly contradicting Trump's claim that the strait does not matter to America, because America is the world's largest oil producer. The Dallas Fed said the economic effects of the closure will hit around the world, including in the U.S. ABC News, the Dallas Federal Reserve Bank. Not an anti-war think tank, not a foreign government, the Dallas Fed. Let's look at what is happening with ground troops, because the public messaging and the documented actions are now running in directly opposite directions. The U.S. is accelerating the deployment of thousands more Marines and sailors to the Middle East. More than 2,000 Marines head to Middle East as Iran war rages. CNBC Trump said on the South Lawn he is not putting troops anywhere. 2 days later, more than 2,000 Marines are heading to the Middle East. Al Jazeera correspondent Kimberly Halkett said recent U.S. military movements could lead to potential U.S. boots on the ground in Iran in order to secure the Strait of Hormuz. Washington is also considering plans to blockade or occupy Iran's Kharg Island, a strategic oil hub, in a move that could cripple Iran's economy but risk major escalation. NPR blockade or occupy Kharg Island. That is a ground or naval operation against Iranian sovereign territory. Occupying Kharg Island is not an air campaign. It is an act of war in the most direct physical sense, requiring American military personnel to hold Iranian land. Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov called on all sides to agree to an immediate ceasefire and return to the negotiating table, saying Tehran was defending itself, as he called the U.S.-Israeli operation unprovoked. CNN Russia formally calling the American operation unprovoked. Russia calling for a ceasefire in Iran while conducting its own war in Ukraine, which Russia calls a special military operation. The geopolitical symmetry of those two positions is not lost on anyone watching this conflict from Beijing or New Delhi or Ankara. And Ukraine's President Zelensky confirmed this week that peace talks to end the Russia-Ukraine war have been interrupted by the Iran conflict, with Washington's attention diverted and a pause in negotiations now requiring active effort to resume. One war is now directly affecting the diplomatic timeline of another war on a different continent. Netanyahu condemned Tehran after a missile attack on the southern Israeli city of Arad, which injured at least 84 people. CBS News, 84 people injured in a single missile strike on one Israeli city. And the death toll inside Iran continues climbing. The war has killed 1,444 people in Iran, including at least 204 children. NPR, 204 children killed inside Iran. That figure, the children's death toll specifically, appears in almost no Western mainstream coverage. It appears in the UN situation reports, in the Iranian Health Ministry's official figures, and in human rights organization documentation. 204 children. Their names are not being read on any television program that this channel is aware of. We are reading the number. We cannot read the names because we do not have them. But the number is verified and it belongs in every fact check of this war. Here is where the facts leave us on day 23. Trump said Iran has no navy, no air force, no anti-aircraft, no radar, and no leaders. Iran then fired intermediate-range ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia, launched 47 drones at Saudi Arabia in a single barrage, hit Kuwait's refinery, issued public statements from the Supreme Leader, Parliament Speaker, and Foreign Minister, and fired the missile that struck near Dimona. America lifted sanctions on 140 million barrels of Iranian oil to manage the energy crisis caused by the war against Iran. Goldman Sachs says high prices could last through 2027. The Dallas Fed confirmed the economic impact will hit America too. Iran is reportedly monetizing Hormuz passage. Iran threatened to close the strait indefinitely if its power plants are bombed. Trump threatened to obliterate Iran's power plants. 2,000 Marines are heading to the Middle East. Kharg Island blockade is under consideration. Russia called the operation unprovoked. Ukraine peace talks paused. 204 children killed inside Iran. We will keep verifying every single claim. We will keep holding every statement to the evidence. Stay with us.